Who's the best anti-large monster? That's the question we're going to try and answer here today with a showdown between the best anti-large monsters in Total War Warhammer 2. Which one is the pound for pound king of the monsters? The main test will include Regiments of Renown, but we'll do maybe a top 3 afterwards of non-Regiments of Renown and a few other miscellaneous tests. Do understand though that these tests are by no means a perfect and fair way of testing, because honestly I'm not even sure that exists in Total War Warhammer 2 anyway. These videos are to help people learn units, to help people learn matchups, maybe see which monsters can beat which ones so they'll know for the future, and for just general entertainment. So don't take it too seriously if your favourite monster gets crumped. Testing will be as usual, 5 units on each side in a best of 5. If it's close we'll run it again, and if it's close again and goes the other way we'll run it one more time. So a best of 3 of a best of 5, if that makes any sense at all. If you've seen these before you'll get the idea. Now, as this test is for anti-large single entity monsters, there's going to be a lot of monsters and factions that don't get included. If you don't see a monster here, it's probably because it's anti-infantry, and this is going to be specifically monsters with an anti-large bonus on their weapon strength. Even though there are some non-anti-large monsters that could throw down in this test pretty well, like a Star Dragon perhaps, they won't have unfortunately made the cut. But we'll test a few of those at the end. Most will likely be saved though for who's the best anti-infantry single large monster, perhaps. So, to our contestants then. In faction alphabetical order, beginning with the Dark Elves and the Charybdis. It has pretty big weapon damage, poison on that weapon damage, and a 35% missile resistance, all which may come in handy in this competition. Partly because the ARACHNAROCK Queen for the Greenskins has a missile attack, which she might need to help her with a pretty low weapon strength compared to other units in this competition, although she does have the poison and pretty beefy melee attack. She's one of 2 Regiments of Renown in this competition. To the Lizardmen then, with an army that's full of single large monsters, but the only anti-large one is the feral CARNOSAUR. He is the cheapest unit in the competition, but does that mean he's destined for last place? Onto the Skaven and the HELLPIT Abomination. One of the biggest weapon strengths in the competition, regeneration and a chance to gain health before it dies. Could that allow it to beat more expensive units? For the Tomb Kings, it's the Regiment of Renown SPHINX. This bad boy does have the biggest weapon strength in the competition, magical and fire attacks, and being a Tomb King's construct, it won't rout and run away and will rather crumble, which may allow it to fight for longer, giving it an advantage in this kind of competition over most other monsters. The other monster with this advantage is the Terrorgeist for the Vampire Counts, which is also the only flying unit in the competition, which comes with both its strengths and weaknesses, at least in this kind of showdown. It has regeneration and poison, which could help it along the way. And for the Chaos, one of the anti-large single monsters that's been terrorizing the battlefield since day 1 of Total War Warhammer, the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH. Big stats all across the board, but how will it hold up against the Warhammer 2 monsters and Regiments of Renown? So that is all the units in this competition. We're going to mark their wins and losses up on this here graph. We're going to do the bottom 2 first, then the mid 2, and then the top 3. So we can find out who's the best, biggest, baddest bastard monster. So let's kick things off with the Feral CARNOSAUR and the Terrorgeist for the Vampire Counts. Now the Terrorgeist has a few things about it in this competition. Number 1, because it's flying, it'll get its charge bonus when it comes in and attacks, whereas the opponent won't be able to do that because it's in the air, so they won't get their charge bonus. A bit of an advantage for the Terrorgeist there. Another advantage it could have is its breath attacks, which we could use, but in this competition it didn't really seem fair to have them just lurking in the air, using up all their breath attacks and then attacking. Realistically, you wouldn't be able to do that in a battle anyway. You wouldn't wait for the recharge timer every time to do it again and again before you attack. And mostly that breath attack says it's good against a single unit, not a single entity necessarily. So it might not really be meant for monsters. It would probably do a little bit of damage. Whether it's enough to make a big difference in these fights, well, we'll see how it does first. Against this Feral CARNOSAUR, it's doing okay. It's got good damage on the CARNOSAUR. It does have the regeneration, the Terrorgeist, so that helps it stay in the fight that little bit longer. A lot of these CARNOSAURs have gone into Rampage. Pretty even in a lot of these fights, though. Maybe not this one at the end. Terrorgeist getting a bit of a beat down there. CARNOSAUR maybe losing in the middle. Winning at the edge here. Pretty even after that. So all to play for. Seems pretty even in who could win these fights. The Terrorgeist has the poison as well, which brings down the stats of the enemy. The Carnosaur does have Frenzy though when it's above, I guess, 50% health. So once they get below that, they may start to struggle. They'll lose some stat points. Depends if the crumbly leadership of the Terrorgeist can hold on. Neither of these have great leadership, but Terrorgeist beginning to crumble in some places. No wavering Carnosaurs yet, only rampaging ones. And like I mentioned, the Feral Carnosaur is the cheapest unit in this competition at 1600. The Terrorgeist is pretty expensive, gets his first win here against the Carnosaur. Oh, 2 Carnosaurs here at the end of one though. That's 2-1 to the Carnosaurs. Who's going to get it? This Terrorgeist, not looking good for him. He's on his last batty legs. Oh, this Carnosaur wavering. This one may be crumbling though. Who's going first? Oh, the Carnosaur. No, the Terrorgeist goes down. He tries to... I've never seen that animation before. Tries to fly off and then just does a faceplant instead. How have I never seen that animation in 4 years of Total War Warhammer? But there we go. Feral Carnosaur victorious. What about the Terrorgeist versus the HELLPIT Abomination? Gonna get that free charge in again is the Terrorgeist. Couldn't quite fell the Carnosaur. Can it do the HELLPIT in? Another Warhammer 2 unit. Terrorgeist, another one of those units that's been around since the dawn of Warhammer Total War. Getting some good damage on the HELLPIT so far. The HELLPIT does have regeneration as well though, so it's kind of negating the Terrorgeist's regeneration, shall we say. They're both throwing down pretty evenly so far. This matchup at least, they've both lost about the same amount of health. Which is surprising considering that the HELLPIT Abomination hits so much harder than the Terrorgeist. Pretty even here as well. And here. This is going to be a close one, I think. The HELLPIT only costs a little bit less than the Terrorgeist, but what you have to remember with the Terrorgeist is that you're paying for stuff which isn't really useful in this kind of competition. The breath attack and the mobility of flying doesn't really help them at all here. One Terrorgeist has gone down. HELLPIT victory. HELLPIT victory. There's that animation again with the faceplant at the end. Another one down here. Looking good for the HELLPIT. I want to see if we can see that animation nice and clearly one more time. Stomps on him. These two down the end. Oh, looks like they might win one here. Terrorgeist going to wing one back. Maybe. Can he do it? He's got him wavering. Is he going to burst into a hail of Skaven slaves? I think he gained some health back then. He got the too horrible to die ability coming in. This one going down though. Bonk, one more hit. Is that going to finish it off? No, it's still going. Go on, Terrorgeist. You could do it. You could do it, buddy. Oh, he gets a slap. Oh, and there he goes. Here he goes. Fly, fly. No, down he goes. Good effort, Terrorgeist. Couldn't do it though. HELLPIT Abomination victorious. Alright, Charybdis time for the Dark Elves. Let's see what they've got against the Feral Carnosaur. A unit that only costs 100 more than the Carnosaur, so it should be fairly close. We shall see though. Carnosaur coming in aggressive early. No regeneration for the Charybdis, like the Hydra. So it doesn't have that regenerating advantage. Does have the poison though, which will help it out. Fairly beefy weapon strength as well. And all of these units have armor piercing, so they're all kind of even on that playing field. Looks like the Charybdis, maybe not taking an advantage. Maybe the Carnosaur's lead. I don't know. Again, it's so close. A lot of these battles are fairly even. Charybdis winning this one. I think when these Carnosaurs drop below 50% health though and lose their frenzy, that's when they're going to start to struggle, which it seems like they are. Charybdis starting to pull ahead in all of these fights. 2 wavering Carnosaurs here. One's broken. That's 1 win for the Dark Elves. And these 2 on the end. 1 wavering here. Charybdis wavering there. Oh, these 3 have all broken. That's at least a win for the Charybdis. Unless these 2 can win. Carnosaur's gone. Nope. A straight victory. A straight 5 for the Charybdis. And testing the Feral Carnosaur against the HELLPIT, you do get some of these awesome animations. There are a few animations between Warhammer 2 monsters, which are kind of unique and where they actually interact with each other, which are kind of cool to watch, but unfortunately for the Feral Carnosaur, it couldn't stop the HELLPIT Abomination either, which brings us to the result for the bottom 2 units of this competition. And at the very bottom, it is the Terrorgeist, who couldn't win against anybody, closely followed by the Carnosaur, who could only beat the Terrorgeist. Only just though. What is a little bit surprising is that the Terrorgeist did so badly, being so expensive at 2,000, but in its defense, I think a lot of its strength and the things that you're paying for aren't coming to use in this kind of testing. Namely, the mobility from being able to fly around, that doesn't help at all, but you are paying for that when you buy this unit. And of course the breath attack, which didn't get used, so you have to consider those things. But it's not fair to say that the Terrorgeist is a terrible monster. It's not at all, it's great. But maybe it is not good against other monsters so much. Maybe it's better against other kinds of large cavalry, maybe monstrous infantry. For that kind of price, you'd expect it to at least beat the CARNOSAUR, who is significantly cheaper by 400. Props to the CARNOSAUR though, it did put up a good fight against the HELLPIT, who costs a bit more than it. But again, the CARNOSAUR is a unit that maybe didn't get to use all of its tools because it is a very fast large monster. Very quick to get around, very hard to pin down. Didn't really get to use that in this competition, but it still did okay. So that's the bottom two units. Let's move on to see who's in the mid two. Okay, onto two units we haven't seen yet, the ARACHNAROCK Queen and the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH. Now for the Queen, you're getting a few things here that aren't being made the most of, like the spawnable spider's ability. We're not using that, so she doesn't get that advantage. Also, she has a missile attack, which is constantly going off, but she's not going to get to use all of her ammunition or even half of her ammunition. So that's another thing that you're paying for that in this kind of test you're not really making the most of. The missile attack is definitely helping her do some damage here, as her weapon strength is fairly low at around 380 compared to the 400s and 500s of a lot of the other units in this. But with that being said, she does have poison attacks as well on her melee, which is bringing the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH's damage down, really helping the Queen to survive that little bit longer against the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH and his big weapon damage. The Queen also has monstrous melee attack at 70, that's nearly 20 more than the SHAGGOTH, so she's got some things going. She's making up for that low weapon strength in other ways. And it looks like she's beating down the SHAGGOTHs slowly but surely, gaining the advantage. This fight a little bit more even. The SHAGGOTH, an expensive unit in its own right, about 2,000. 2,400 for the ARACHNAROCK. She's giving it back though. No regeneration for either of these units. Looking like she might win on the end. She's got more health. One wavering SHAGGOTH here. He's pretty much done for. That Queen's got a lot of health. Another wavering. That's 2. Might win this one. This one's looking pretty close. This Queen's taking a beat down. Maybe the SHAGGOTH can bring one home for the Chaos. We shall see. One win for the Spiders. Looking like 2 more wins here. This one could be close. Who's going to get it? Oh, a wavering Spider. Come on, SHAGGOTH. See if you can get one home. Maybe 2. Don't think they're going to win it. But they might be able to make it even and take it to another one. No, she's hanging in there. One more hit. Oh, she's hanging in there. She does not go home. SHAGGOTH broken over here. Either way, could... Oh, a double breakage here. Both have routed here. Unfortunately for the SHAGGOTH, though, it's a decisive victory for the Queens in this one. Okay, what about the HELLPIT Abomination again? This time versus the Charybdis for the Dark Elves. Bit of a slow start. Come on, lads. Let's have a fight. Get stuck in. Let's see who's got the big ones. Regeneration for the HELLPIT. Poison for the Charybdis. Both have pretty big weapon strength at around 500 plus. Who do you reckon? Who have you got? The HELLPIT's a little bit more expensive. Who do we think is going to take it? If you said Charybdis, you'd be laughing. You'd be rich right now because the HELLPIT got absolutely stomped by the Charybdis. One down there, another down there. Skaven slaves everywhere. That's how you know things have gone badly for the HELLPITs. But one other thing that's coming into play for the Charybdis is the -8 leadership ability it has, which might help rout off some units earlier than they might normally go. But in this case, they've straight up just killed all these HELLPITs before they could rout off anyway. So one of the cheaper units at 1700, able to beat a slightly more expensive unit here. The Charybdis, is it the dark horse of the competition? Well, there's only really one way to find out. Put it in a fight with a SHAGGOTH. Let's see what it can do here. The SHAGGOTH costs 2,000, so 300 more than this Charybdis. For some reason, it's turned its back on the SHAGGOTH, giving it a free hit or 2. Why has it done that? That's a great animation. Well played, Charybdis. Not really sure what's happening there. Shouldn't be doing that. No reason to turn around unless it was going to try some kind of tail attack or something, but seems a bit weird. That could be hurting their performance. It's done the same here. This is strange. Is this a Charybdis problem? Do they do this often? Is it seriously hurting their performance? This one looked like it was trying to turn there. Taking 2 hits. Kind of getting itself stunned. Interesting. Does the Charybdis have some kind of turning problem? This one looked like it's turning. That could just be an animation though. Maybe I'm just seeing things. A couple of times it definitely did turn around for no apparent reason though. Nonetheless, it seems to be doing pretty well. It's doing some good damage to the SHAGGOTH. Again, that poison lowering the SHAGGOTH damage, much like the spider did. Again, this one's turned to its side. What is it doing? There we go. Bringing in an attack. Okay. Maybe it's got some different angled attacks. Little tail attack there. This Charybdis struggling. Oh, a couple of Dragon Ogres struggling though. One Dragon Ogre's broken. One's wavering. Oh, this is close. We got a broken Charybdis. That's 1 each. Looking like we're going to have another broken Charybdis here. That's going to be 2 for the Dragon Ogres. But it's not over yet. 2-1 to the Dragon Ogres. Oh, 2-2. Charybdis bringing it back, taking down another Dragon Ogre. It's all on this one. It's pretty even. Dragon Ogre's got decent health. Charybdis still got a bit of health. Can it do it? Can it hold on against the Dragon Ogre? Oh, it's a wavering. Looks like it's going to take a 3-2 against the Dragon Ogres. Very, very close. Which means we got to run this one again. This Charybdis is going home for now. So the first one, Dragon Ogres. Round 2 though. It went the other way. Charybdis win it 4-1. Not sure how they did it. Maybe they just didn't turn around needlessly all the time and got hit in the back for no reason. But this time, the Charybdis win it fairly comfortably. Which brings us to a third round then. Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH versus Charybdis. Both of 1 a round each. Let's see who takes this third one. Best of 5 as usual. Charybdis getting the better, although good damage coming back from the SHAGGOTHs. Less silly turning around this time, it seems. This Charybdis in bad shape, looking good for a SHAGGOTH here. Charybdis winning at this end though. Looking good for a Charybdis here. Wavering Charybdis. Wavering SHAGGOTH. Oh, goddamn, it's close. And what's interesting about these 2 units is that they're both pretty much straight up melee powerhouses. They don't have any wasted abilities like the spider ability or the flying for the Terrorgeist. They're both pretty much just about their melee power. And considering the SHAGGOTH costs 300 more, the Charybdis is giving it a hell of a run for its money. We've got a routed SHAGGOTH, 2 routed Charybdis. Who can hang on? There's one at the end. And another fight here, which is just about to be... Oh, Charybdis has won here. That's 2-2. Brings it down to the last fight, which the Charybdis has won. The Charybdis has beaten the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTHs, which is pretty damn surprising. Death flip from the SHAGGOTH at the end. This image pretty much says it all. So the Charybdis not only beating the more expensive HELLPIT, but also beating the more expensive Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTHs. Which leaves us with a tie between the HELLPIT and the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTHs to see who is the best of the mid-tier. HELLPIT has that regeneration, which may come in handy against this SHAGGOTH. They both hit pretty hard with big weapon damage. No poison slowing the SHAGGOTH down this time. Little bow before a big strike. Boom. Damage though, looks like the HELLPIT may be doing a little bit better. See how they progress. HELLPIT at the end struggling. HELLPIT struggling all across the board now. Maybe the SHAGGOTH has got this one. Does cost about 200 more than the HELLPIT, so it should be able to beat them. But hey, that's what we said about the goddamn Charybdis. And look what happened. Charybdis is just wiping the floor with everybody. And it's looking pretty bleak for the HELLPIT. Abominations now. Dragon Ogres pulling ahead in too many fights, I think. Not really done too much damage to some of these SHAGGOTHs in some cases as well, which is strange considering its damage. Maybe its melee attack is letting it down. SHAGGOTHs, though, going to take this one to claim the top of the mid 2 units. So, perhaps somewhat surprisingly, the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH didn't make it into the top 3. The HELLPIT Abomination, only able to beat the CARNOSAUR and the Terrorgeist below it, couldn't quite manage the SHAGGOTH, but the SHAGGOTH is the real surprise here. Because it costs 2,000, the more expensive end of the spectrum in this competition, you'd think it would be right up there, but the 1,700 cost Charybdis able to top it. But only just. It was very, very close, as we saw. Maybe this is a sign that the Chaos really need their update to bring their units up to speed to compete with some of these new fancier units. Or maybe the Charybdis is just well suited to this kind of competition. Maybe it's great at taking out other monsters. Maybe that -8 leadership penalty that it inflicts on its enemies is really helping it to win and rout things off sooner. Or maybe it's just OP. Let's move on now to the top 3. We'll kick it off with the one unit we haven't seen yet, the SPHINX of USEKPH, or however the hell you say that. Throwing down with the apparent destroyer of monsters, the Charybdis. Top 3 units now, let's see how we do. Good damage on the SPHINX so far. Charybdis taking an early lead. Can it really top this unit? This will be a unit that costs about 600 more than the Charybdis, which would be absolutely insane if it managed to beat this boy. Starting to get a bit of damage back is the SPHINX, but that Charybdis is not messing around. He's putting some hurt on the big boy. The SPHINX has pretty good weapon strength of 440, but not quite the 500 of the Charybdis. Does have the magical and fire attacks, but those aren't coming into play to help here at all. They certainly would have helped against some of the lesser units. The HELLPIT Abomination with its regeneration, the Terrorgeist with regeneration, got absolutely murdered by the SPHINX because it has that fire damage. Looks like the old Necro is starting to pull ahead, beating down this Charybdis at least, beating down this one as well. One wavering over here, starting to crumble a little bit. Might get one win out of the Charybdis, which would be pretty impressive. One of them got smashed over here. This SPHINX got loads of health left. It's pretty one-sided, I think. 4 losses for the Charybdis. Can it win one, though? Can it bring back some honor? And at least once beat a unit that costs about 600 more than it does. Oh, double wavering and crumbling. Oh, it's broken. Oh, the Charybdis got in one final attack, but it wasn't enough. But there we go. Oh, a cheap shot from the SPHINX at the end. SPHINX takes him down. So the Charybdis couldn't quite take out the fancy SPHINX. Can it take out the fancy ARACHNAROCK spider, though? This, of course, has a few wasted abilities, as I mentioned earlier. The spiders, the missile attack. So maybe the Charybdis and its pure monster-killing power will be able to outperform the old ARACHNAROCK Queen here. Getting a bit of damage so far. It's done more damage to the Queen than the Queen's done to it. At least early on. He's a vicious beast, this one. I honestly didn't expect the Charybdis to do this well. Considering its price point, it is vastly performing better than you'd expect. The Queen, though, starting to bring the damage back. Like I said, she's got really high melee attack, so her attacks often land, rarely miss, unless the unit had particularly high melee defense, which the Charybdis does not actually. It's fairly low, only 30 to the 38 of the ARACHNAROCK Queen here. So not a huge difference, but it's something. 8 melee defense goes a long way. Looks like the Charybdis is starting to catch a beat down now. The spider missiles still going off. Those not a huge impact, but they'll do a little something. They'll also probably give a leadership penalty as well, which will help. Charybdis is hanging in there for now, but it looks like the spiders are going to get this one. Although maybe they can win one. Not at this end, though. Charybdis going home here, I think. A lot of health left on that spider still. They're all hanging in there, though. These Charybdises are hanging on. Despite the cost difference, 2,400 the spider costs. That is 700 more. So the Charybdis is putting up a hell of a fight when you think of it like that. It's nearly kind of beat one or two of them, but they've done a hell of a lot of damage. Nearly beat this. Oh, maybe it will beat this one, actually. One Charybdis win, maybe. It's looking good. It's still got a good bit of health left. There we go. One Charybdis win. Probably only 1 of 4. Loss over there. These 3 are losses. But there we go. Charybdis beaten by the ARACHNAROCK Queen, but kills one off at least. God damn. That brings us to the final showdown then. The SPHINX versus the spider. The Queen is only a little bit more expensive by about 50 gold than the SPHINX, so this should be a goddamn close fight. Let's get it on. Here we go. Charge it in. Bit of an anticlimactic charge from the spider there. Well played, Queen. A little bit of damage for both sides so far. Queen getting some good hits in here. Pulling ahead just about in this one. A little bit more HP. Same here, kind of. It's very close. Similar damage output. SPHINX doesn't quite have the melee attack that the old Queen does. She's going to be landing a lot of her hits. This SPHINX is taking a fair old pounding. Nearly at half health already. That Queen is not messing around. This one faring a little better. Putting a bit more damage on the Queen. Maybe things will turn around as the fight goes on. Of course, the Sphinx won't rout, as the spider will, so that could be a big factor here when we get to the late fight. We shall see. We'll see if the Necro-Sphinx can get the spider down to that little health. Not looking good for this one. It's a crumbling, it's doing a spinny, it's doing a 360, no anything. Comes in with a hit, there we go. 360 Slice Claw. That's what he was planning. Didn't really help him too much. This one's looking alright though, pretty much half and half there. Couple of crumbling. This one's hanging in there. Not too bad in the health. Still got half health. About even there. This fight looking a little bit dire for the Tomb Kings. That Sphinx is nearly out of health. It's not doing enough damage to the spider. Down the end. I mean, it's done good damage. By all means, it's done good damage, but it's not enough. And the Queen just seems to be edging it. Could be a poison that's really bringing down the Necro-Sphinx. And of course, the Necro-Sphinx, as I mentioned earlier, has that fire and magic attacks, which isn't coming to help here at all. And you are paying for that, so that's kind of in the cost. 1 loss here for the Tomb Kings. 2 losses. Probably. Oh, might get a win here, actually. Got good health on this Necro-Sphinx. It's getting shot at by one of the other spiders, so a little bit of cheating from the spiders there, but he still manages to win. Looking like they might get the 1. This one's not looking too good. He's doing a 360 spin claw. He's got him. Not enough, though. Wavering spider here, but Tomb Kings goes down, and it seems the ARACHNAROCK Queen shall be victorious this day with the felling of this last Sphinx. Eventually, he's resistant. He's resilient. We'll give him that. And down he goes. Blonk. Tomb Kings have lost this one. The ARACHNAROCK Queen is the king of the monsters. The queen of the monsters. She's the best monster, basically. So, perhaps somewhat unsurprisingly, the 2 Regiment of Renown units that are the most expensive by a fair amount are the best 2 units of this competition, with the ARACHNAROCK Queen taking the top spot. So the Greenskins not only have the best infantry in the game, they've got the best single anti-large monster in the game as well. Now, if we look at these in ranks with the prices next to them, we can see some interesting things. As we say, the most 2 expensive units are at the top, as we'd expect. The Charybdis, though, is the real surprise here. At number 3, able to beat the more expensive Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH and the more expensive HELLPIT Abomination. Which means there's something going on with the Charybdis here. There's a few possibilities. Number 1, maybe it's just really good at this kind of competition. It's fantastic at taking out other single large monsters. Whereas the other 2 maybe are better suited for dealing with cavalry or monstrous infantry. Possibility number 2, the Charybdis is quite simply OP, or just not expensive enough for what it can do, or perhaps its stats just need to come down a bit to make it more reflective of that price. Possibility number 3 though, maybe the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH has just really fallen behind. The Chaos obviously haven't been updated for a long time, so the SHAGGOTH has fallen behind and hasn't really either got the stat buff it needs to keep up with all the new units, or hasn't had the price brought down to make it more reflective of its performance. Either way, it doesn't seem quite right that the SHAGGOTH lost to the Charybdis, considering it cost 300 less. It was an incredibly close fight, but it shouldn't have been. The Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH should have stomped it relatively well. The other issue you'll notice looking at these rankings is the Terrorgeist, way down the bottom, even though it's the 3rd most expensive unit in the competition. But, as I mentioned earlier, in its defense, it's not really designed for this kind of monster-on-monster fight. It has the flying ability which you're paying for, and the breath attack which you're paying for, neither of which came into play in this competition. So, not a great place for the Terrorgeist to fight, but what we have learned from this is that even if we take the cost of flying and breath attacks off of the Terrorgeist, it can't bring in any less than the Feral Carnosaur is, 1600 surely, and it's still lost to that in a melee fight. Which kinda says that the Terrorgeist maybe isn't fantastic at taking on other single large monsters, at least maybe not anti-large ones. Or perhaps it's just better at going after cavalry, perhaps, especially as it has the breath attack, which is, as it says, good against a single unit. Not a single entity, not multiple units, a single unit. Could be cavalry, right? Maybe monstrous infantry. Seems like it would be better suited to taking on those rather than single large monsters. Maybe. But there we go. The best anti-large monsters in Warhammer 2 ranked up. Now let's take out those 2 regiments of renown units and replace them with their normal counterparts and see what happens. So first up, the Necro-Sphinx, the regular kind against the Charybdis. The Necro-Sphinx costs 2,000 just like the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH did, who the Charybdis was able to beat. So can it beat another 2,000 cost unit? Well, no. But it very nearly did. It's able to win 2 fights at the end here. NecroSphinx wins one there. Just about wins another one here. And then it comes down to this fight on the end, which the NecroSphinx wins. But again, the Charybdis nearly beating this time a unit that costs 2,000. Its performance shouldn't be this good against units that cost so much more, you'd think. What about the SHAGGOTH and the SPHINX then? Who wins this one? They cost exactly the same at 2,000, so this should be a pretty close one. Or so you would have thought. The Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH is going to win this 4-1. Very close in some situations, but the SHAGGOTH is able to put down the Tomb Kings, showing it's still got a little bit of life left in it. Alright, what about the regular ARACHNAROCK Spider then? No queen, just the normal kind now, versus the Charybdis, the one that seems to be felling all the more expensive units. The Spider costs 1,900, so a little bit more than the Charybdis, but less than the SHAGGOTH and the SPHINX. But the Spider in this case is able to put the Charybdis in its place, where it should be, not beating units that are more expensive than it. And fairly decisively as well. Still a lot of health left on these Spiders. They didn't have too much trouble with the Charybdis at all, showing that Spiders have still got it even without the Queen power. Or do they? Let's see what they can do against the NecroSphinx, as it is slightly more expensive than the ARACHNAROCK. And also it doesn't rout, which again may be an advantage here against this Spider. And now, while it is close in some places between the SPHINX and the Spider, the ARACHNAROCK is able to comfortably take it 4-1, or maybe 3-1. There's a little bit of a draw at the end here, but the ARACHNAROCK takes it either freaking way. Which seems like it seals it, right? The ARACHNAROCK Spider is the best. It's beaten all of them, right? Oh no, there's one left. Big Papa SHAGGOTH is yet to go against the Spider. He costs 100 more, same as the NecroSphinx did, which the Spider was able to beat. So will the SHAGGOTH be able to topple the Spider and prevent him from really being the best, able to beat everybody? Freaking monster. We'll see. It's not looking too good for him in some areas. Losing this one. Pretty even in the middle. Pretty even at the edges. Winning this one right at the edge pretty comfortably as well. Let's slow it down, take a closer look. Waver and SHAGGOTH here. Routed SHAGGOTH. That's 2 up for the Spider already. It's now not looking so good for the SHAGGOTHs. Or is it? They've won one here. They're about to win another one here. That brings it down to this final fight where the ARACHNAROCK is wavering. Very close though, both on very low health. Much better leadership for the SHAGGOTH though, which might be enough. Unless the ARACHNAROCK Queen can get in a big hit. Cheeky poke from the Dragon Ogre. Either the ARACHNAROCK's going to rout or she might hit the SHAGGOTH and make him waver. He's doing a spinny. Oh, he's done a 180 just to mock her. He's going to get in the hit again. The ARACHNAROCK seems a little bit slow in attacking and is going to rout. So the SHAGGOTH able to top the ARACHNAROCK Spider, but only just. So we're going to run it again one more time. If the Spider can win this one, then the Spider will reign supreme as really the best single monster in the game, whether it's Regiment of Renown or not. However, if the SHAGGOTH wins, it doesn't mean the SHAGGOTH is the best because that lost to the Charybdis. So it's kind of in an awkward spot that both of these are pretty much at the top of the game. So we'll find out here if the Spider can really conquer all, or whether the SHAGGOTH can throw a dragony wrench in the plans. Again, looking very close in a lot of places. Slight advantage for the Spider here. A little bit more health. This one not looking so good for the SHAGGOTH. Good bit more health for the Spider. This one the other way around though. Good bit more health for the Dragon Ogre. Beating down that Spider. Very even in this fight. And looks like the Spider might be going down in this one, although again, incredibly close. Oh, Spider gone. That's 1 for the SHAGGOTHs. Can they do it? 2 for the SHAGGOTH, 3 for the SHAGGOTH, 1 for the Spider. That pretty much means the SHAGGOTHs have done it. And now they're going to make it 4-1 just to embarrass the Spider. Oh, double wavering. Both on their last legs. Who can hang on? Can the SHAGGOTH make a point? Or can the Spider really make this as even as it seems? Oh, SHAGGOTH doing a spinny. That's not helping. Hit him. There we go. Spider goes. Oh, SHAGGOTH goes. Everyone's going. Oh, I don't know what to call. I'm pretty much sure. Well, I mean, the SHAGGOTH's won, but god damn it. Has he really won? Doesn't really look like it. I guess SHAGGOTH and Spider, both the best. Dual best. Looking at the grand scheme of things, though, I think you have to say that the Spider was the best because it was more cost effective. It cost 100 less than the SHAGGOTH, yet it was still nearly able to beat it. And it beat everything else, whereas the SHAGGOTH beat everything else except for the Charybdis, who cost less than it and only narrowly beat the Spider. So overall, I think the Spider was slightly better, but you can decide for yourselves. Let me know what you think. Seems overall that the Spider reigns supreme, Regiment of Renown or not. We also tested some of the best non-anti-large units against the Queen to see how they would fare. The Star Dragon being the first one we tried, he actually cost the same as the Queen, 2,400. He's got some big weapon damage, although it's going to be brought down to size a bit by the poison of the ARACHNAROCK Queen. And I was also curious to see how big of a difference that anti-large bonus would make for two units of the same cost fighting each other. Turns out a pretty big freaking difference, as the ARACHNAROCK Queen absolutely stomped the Star Dragon with plenty of health left. What about the Norscan Soul Crusher, the most powerful mammoth for Norska? It is cheaper than the Queen, so I'm not necessarily expecting it to win, but I thought maybe it would do some good damage. It does have missiles as well, which are anti-large, but no, couldn't really get anywhere near beating it, but it maybe did as well in damage as the Star Dragon, which is surprising considering the cost difference. And lastly, we tested the Rotting Leviathan, because why not? It's like your mum always said, throw a crab in there and see what happens. In this case, not a lot. The Rotting Leviathan put up some damage on the spiders. This one kept attacking with its ass, apparently. These other ones didn't do so well. Got some decent damage in some cases, but not enough to really warrant going after that spider and trying to engage it in melee, because that anti-large bonus, simply too much. So don't engage these anti-large monsters with your monsters that aren't anti-large, because they'll get messed up. Now, we also tried out rank 9 Charybdis against the ARACHNAROCK Queen to see if that could take her down. He costs a couple of hundred less, so not quite as expensive as her, but when has that ever bothered the Charybdis? Unfortunately for it though, it wasn't able to top the Queen in this case. She was able to put the Charybdis away fairly well though, although she did lose one battle, so Charybdis got one back. We also tried rank 9 SPHINX, triple gold chevroned, and actually more expensive than the Queen at 2,630. That's 230 more than the Queen. But she cared not, and she still took that one down, which left it again to the SHAGGOTH. Triple gold chevroned up, juiced up to the max. Can he make the upset once again? He costs the same price as the SPHINX at 2,630 when he's fully ranked up. But where everything else has failed, the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH rank 9 is able to top the ARACHNAROCK Queen. Somebody can do it. And rightly so, that it's the veteran of the game, the Dragon Ogre SHAGGOTH. Still got some juice in the tank. Although this all kind of shows that still rank 9 units aren't very well balanced compared to the base units. So there we go. All the single entity anti-large monsters ranked and tested, murdering each other for eternal glory. Hopefully this has helped you learn some units, learn who will beat who, and that you really shouldn't engage these anti-large monsters with your non-anti-large monsters. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the future.